Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas. I am your host for this week, Cameron Lawrence, sitting with my guy, my dude, my man, Mr. Tyler Plath. Tyler, how are you this week?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm going to do even better because I'm not going to talk about the weather right in the first minute of an episode. Can you believe it?
I think I may abstain as well. This is a world record. This is mind blowing. If you're listening for the first time, I apologize. It's an inside joke, and we're not going to fill you in on it.
It is taking every muscle that I have to not talk about the weather, but we are not going to talk about it. So
instead, we're going to talk about not talking about the weather.
Exactly, because it's not directly the weather, just indirect.
Yes.
So, how's your week doing? How's school finishing up for you? And are you going to be an emotional mess tomorrow?
I am. It's my last day. My kids know I'm leaving for good. It sucks, actually. It's really sad, but I'm trying to get over it, trying to be excited and happy for football. My kids found out, actually, on Tuesday that I run this podcast and have a TikTok, and they were freaking out about it. I can't believe I hid it from them this long. And so, yeah, it was because I was editing something on my computer, and one of the kids came back and freaked out. I was trying to save it for the last day, so it wasn't a big thing, but now they know. So we're gonna be at 44,012 followers pretty soon here on TikTok. So
you're the local celebrity over in small town Wisconsin.
I mean, we have what? It's 78 times more people following us on TikTok than that live in Plum City. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy out here.
It is pretty drastic.
It is. Well, as you may notice, we are missing our great pal, Lucas, again. He is still in Slovakia, fighting the good fight, bringing chocolate.
You said Asia last week. It's Slovakia. The dude's on the move.
He's a man of the world. Just taking on every challenge.
Refined sense for culture.
No, Lucas is out again this week. He's on a fishing trip, I think is what he said. I may have botched
something
that.
Like that. So I don't know.
We're sticking to fishing trip. He is chasing sharks in the Canada right now.
In the Canada.
I'm feeling like I'm going to be emotional tomorrow. So I'm going to be so witty and just dry humor for the rest of this. So it's going to be pretty off the cuff. But with that, let's just jump into some news and notes.
Do you need me to transition?
I would love for you to transition us. Beautiful.
Sorry, that's really going to be... That's got to be the most annoying sound for anyone listening. So I really, really apologize. It sounded better in my head, and then once I heard myself do it, I'm really sorry.
It was perfect. I thought it was perfect, and that is all that matters.
Thank you.
So there's actually been a considerable amount of news this last week with OTAs starting all around the league. So we'll jump into a couple signings real quick on the defense side of the ball, just get them out of the way. Kyle Fuller, the cornerback, ex-Bear corner, just signed with the Ravens. And Jadeveon Clowney signed with the Browns after turning down multi-year $14 to $15 million contracts to sign a one-year $10 million contract with the Browns. It just shows that commitment that he has and just enjoying having Myles Garrett on the other side so he's not facing double teams all the time. As we move forward, some more OTA news, or actually another signing on the offensive side of the ball. Darrell Williams is signed by the Arizona Cardinals. He will be the backup to James Conner. Probably bumping James Conner down a little bit just because of receiving work. If you were projecting James Conner out, you had him a little higher because he was the only guy there, right? Keontae Ingram was not going to come in. Benjamin was not going to steal from James Conner. But Darrell Williams will get considerable amount of receiving work this year, maybe a couple touches on the ground here or there. Ty, does Darrell Williams have any fantasy value this season?
He absolutely does. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Williams, I think he finished running back 25 last year.
Did he really?
Yeah, I'm going to double check that real quick because
right behind the man, the myth, the legend, Myles Gaskin. So,
oh, wait a second. Oh, no. Oh, boy. Oh, shoot. I went to one of my leagues where I have him, but I remember that the scoring in that league is drastically different than what's standard. So, as I stall here, he was running back 20.
Was he actually? That's insane.
He was running back 20, and he made that off of receiving work.
No kidding. That's crazy.
There was really no run game to speak of in Kansas City last year. And when Clyde Edwards-Helaire went down, it was Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon. And Darrell Williams made the most of it. So at the very worst, he is the ideal handcuff to have on your bench to kind of stash away just in case James Conner does get injured, which he has a history of doing.
More than likely.
It's more than likely. And even, what's going to be practical, I guess is the way to phrase it, he will get receiving work. He may be a poor man's Kareem Hunt, you could say. So, to answer your question directly, he's most definitely worth having on your roster at this point.
And you can get him late in drafts. And it will change a little bit when the season comes around, but it will still be very late in drafts. Moving on, more OTA news now. Debo, Kyler, Terry McLaurin, all sitting out of OTAs. They are voluntary, but being in contract disputes, you're probably not going to go practice if you're threatening to hold out for more money. Travis Etienne reported as full go. Michael Thomas, on the other hand, is not ready for OTAs and is hoping to be ready for training camp. That is scary after he's been out for almost 2 years with these ankle injuries. So, yeah, I would really be looking at Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara as well. Obviously, we don't know about his suspension, but he should have some crazy PPR value if Michael Thomas is not 100%.
I cannot wait for people to start taking Adam Troutman, the tight end, as the it's Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave, and if Kamara's not going to play, then who's going to be the third guy? It's not going to be Troutman. Do not try to don't outsmart yourself. Keep it simple. Yes. Do not go, hey, Adam Troutman's a great sleeper tight end. And that's kind of directed at someone that I share a podcast with that does wait until the very last round to take tight ends. So just offering some friendly advice.
I'm taking Gerald Everett. I will tell everybody I'm in a league with. I'm taking him in the 14th round. We're in a dynasty draft right now that has a kicker spot, and I am not drafting a kicker in the draft. So, that's just like my philosophy is I don't care about kickers and tight ends if I miss out on the top 3 tight ends, and I don't care about kickers. Who cares? We shouldn't even have – that's a different debate. All right.
Another episode.
Moving forward, Kyle Shanahan came out and said he expects Jimmy to be traded. Nothing's for certain, but the shoulder surgery did kind of put a damper on that. So something to monitor. Seahawks and Panthers have continually been linked to Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield, so it'd be interesting to see if he gets cut, if he's traded, how that all works out. But just something to monitor. Ron Rivera came out today and just doubled down on crushing the dreams of all Antonio Gibson managers, saying that it will be a split backfield in Washington, confirming that he wants something close to D'Angelo Williams, almost said D'Angelo Russell, and Jonathan Stewart. So Brian Robinson might be interesting this year. Antonio Gibson will be disappointing from what we thought he could be.
I'm going to be honest. He's been disappointing in he's played, 2 years now?
I know.
And he's been disappointing in both years.
Well, he's finished as running back 13 and 12, and he's felt disappointing. You know, it's like one of those guys that he's healthy, so he finishes really high. But you're never like, oh man, I really hope. Like, I'm really glad that he won me this week, because he doesn't win you weeks. He won't lose you a week, but he doesn't win you weeks. You know,
exactly.
And I think that'll probably keep up this season. Well, that's really all I got for news and notes as of right now. I'm sure we always have something come back to us throughout the podcast, so we'll loop you in there. But today, we are excited because we are talking about our top 15 Dynasty running backs moving forward.
Yes, sir.
We love Dynasty on this podcast, and honestly, I wish we could talk about it more. But, just getting ready for redraft is such a big thing. That kind of takes up your whole offseason. We always sprinkle in Dynasty here or there, but I could talk about it all day, every day. With anybody, I send out probably 15 trades a day, and they are all declined.
Can confirm. Confirm.
No, I lied. They're not all declined. Most are just looked at and left for like 4 days before someone responds to me. And so, another subject. But we're gonna start. We're gonna go top. We're gonna talk about our honorable mentions, guys. Top 20 to 16 for all of us. Our consensus rankings. Obviously, we have these guys ranked differently on our different lists. We don't all think alike, thankfully. And then we'll go 15 to 1 after that. So tie. At 20, we have Kenneth Walker, 19, Travis Etienne, 18, Aaron Jones, 17, Ezekiel Elliott, and 16, David Montgomery. I'll give you a minute and a half to talk on one of those guys that you just want to explain that you're either higher on than us or lower on. Just any one of those players that you want to talk about.
You know what? I'll take the minute to do all 5 of those guys because I can keep it real nice and short. So,
all right.
Kenneth Walker is absolutely top 20 just because after this year, and probably even this year, the backfield is his. So in that offense, he will get volume. Etienne, he just got the age component in a potentially blooming offense in Jacksonville. Aaron Jones, look, he had a down year last year, and he still finished as a top 15 running back.
Top 12, I think.
Top 12 even. So, and now with no Devontae, they're going to have to use him more than ever. So, then Zeke at 17. I think people are just a little hesitant on Zeke just because of a down year last year. Go back to my whichever episode it was where I had a monologue on him. You can also find that video on TikTok even, but he's still a solid play, but there are just younger guys or guys that don't necessarily have a Tony Pollard that they play with. And then Montgomery, probably just a little hesitant on just the new regime that's there in Chicago. You just don't know what to expect. But he's what, 24, right? 24, 25?
24 or 5, yep.
So ideally, he can be your running back 2 in Dynasty without any complaints.
Yes. Would 100% agree with that. I do think that the Antonio Gibson news kind of scared us off because he's a guy that before, these last couple weeks, we probably would have expected to see on this list. He's probably 21 for most of us, right on that edge. Mm-hmm. But getting to number 15, I'm not even going to say anything more about those guys. You summed that up perfectly. You did an excellent job, Ty,
thank you.
Explaining your reasoning on all of them. So I will hand it off to you with number 15, Mr. Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, with Akers, I can understand the confusion with putting a guy like Akers at 15 and leaving guys out like Aaron Jones, Zeke, or even Antonio Gibson, right? Like, I understand all of it. I think what puts Akers in at 15 on our consensus rankings is just because he will be the lead back in that Rams offense, and he's in the Rams offense. So that offense is going to be high octane. It will produce, it will score. It'll be a little interesting to see how he comes back into the fold because he missed all of last year. But like I said, this offense, you have to have a piece of, whether it's Cooper Kupp or Cam Akers or Allen Robinson or whoever, you have to have a piece of it. And Cam Akers, the lead back, will get a decent amount of receiving work. He'll get carries. He'll more than likely be the goal line guy too if they want to run it in. So Akers there at 15 is probably the best spot for him, and he's like 23. So you've got him for at least 3 years.
Yeah, I think Cam Akers, we're worried about the efficiency, but James Conner just finished as a running back 5 with 3.7 yards per carry.
Right.
You don't have to be super efficient if you have crazy volume and you're scoring a lot of touchdowns. Akers is going to score at minimum 8 touchdowns this season. Yeah, minimum on that offense, and that's just because of how good the offense is. And we saw in the playoffs, Sean McVay fully committed to Cam Akers.
Yeah.
He did. He never looked a different way. And with Sony Michel out of town, I really don't see him not doing that again this year. Like, Akers is going to be aligned for 16, 17, 18 touches a game, And on the Rams offense, they're going to be quality touches. So, couldn't agree more with that. Moving into 14, this is my guy, J.K. Dobbins. Oh, for Cam Akers, by the way, let's just touch on it. Lucas had him at 17, and me and Ty both had him at 14 in our Dynasty rankings. J.K. Dobbins is one where I am way higher on him than both Ty and Lucas. And I think I've been for a while. He's our 14.
For a while.
Lucas has him right at 14. Ty has him down at 16. I have J.K. Dobbins up at running back 9. And now the reason for that is what I saw from J.K. Dobbins at the end of 2020 was special. When he fully took over, and he didn't even really fully take over the backfield. He was only getting 60% of snaps. But he scored 9 touchdowns. He was rushing for like 95 yards a game. He was putting up 5 yards per carry. This dude is fast. He is strong. He is on a team that is committed to running the ball. And even though Lamar Jackson is going to rush for 1,000 yards, I don't know why J.K. Dobbins couldn't do the same. And Lamar Jackson isn't like a Josh Allen where he's a goal line threat. Lamar Jackson's going to score rushing touchdowns, but you're not rushing in between the tackles from the 3-yard line. You're going to put the ball in J.K. Dobbins' hands. So that's why I have Dobbins higher. But I do think this is going to be a little more of a down year from my expectations. I have had to temper them because he is coming off an ACL injury. He's not Adrian Peterson. He's not putting up an MVP season right away. But I think he'll be decent this year and really good continuing to move forward.
Yeah, and the same thing could be said for Cam Akers, right? Because he's coming off an Achilles, but he played in the playoffs.
Yes.
And now Akers and Dobbins have a full offseason to get back into the fold of an NFL offense. So I don't disagree. Maybe the ranking, just a little bit, but we're nitpicking at that point.
Yes, we are. For sure. Next on our list, number 13, Derrick Henry, probably the most polarizing running back in Dynasty rankings right now because of age, injury. Tyler and Lucas both have him at 13. I have him down at 16. Derrick Henry obviously is going to be 29 this season. He's coming off a foot injury, even though he rushed in the playoffs. And we've been saying for a long time that this man isn't human. He's never going to get hurt. So the armor finally cracked. But honestly, do we really expect he's going to get hurt again? I know there's a re-injury rate. But come on, I'm not predicting an injury for Derrick Henry this season.
Guys, a foot injury is not an ACL injury.
Yes.
Okay. If it's an ACL injury, it's a completely separate injury than the foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. He's still going to get crazy volume. He has to. They just traded away A.J. Brown to bring in Treylon Burks, who could be special, but he's not going to be special the second he steps on the football field. Same with Robert Woods, who's coming back off an ACL. They have to run the ball. And sure, maybe he won't get 460 carries or whatever this year, but he's still going to get 300. It's not going to go down that much. He's still going to get 20 plus a game. He's still going to get all the goal line work. Every time they're within the 5, he touches the ball until they're in the end zone. That's how they run that offense. And so you got at least one more great year out of him, probably 2. unless the wheels really fall. But he's just so big and strong that he could be, great year this year, and then a couple years like a Melvin Gordon we've seen, where he's still a top 18 running back for 3 more years.
Yeah, and I think with Henry, if you're going to take him in your dynasty draft, like, you have to commit to building around him, right? You have to build your team in preparation that maybe in a year it is no longer the Derrick Henry that we've seen the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. So I think, in redrafts, he's still arguably top 5. But when it comes to dynasty, it just adds that extra layer of team building that gets kind of complicated. But it's certainly doable. I think all 3 of us fellows would have no problem with taking Derrick Henry for a dynasty team. But we would have to play out what does Doctor Strange say in Infinity War? Like 15,506 whatever possibilities. That's the amount of mock drafts that we would have to do in order to get it right in order to build around Derrick Henry. So,
yeah. Next we have Nick Chubb, and before I let you take it away, Ty, I do have to admit I think I really screwed up on this ranking. If I would go back, I have him at 18, which is criminally low.
Wow.
And so I think I'm looking back at it, I'd probably move it back up 14 or 13. I'm still a little bit lower than you guys. Ty, you got him at looks like 11, and Lucas has him at 10. So I'll let you explain the upside. I can explain why I'm a little bit lower, but where I have him at 18 is criminally low. That is not where he should be. So, Ty, I'll let you take it on Nick Chubb.
Yeah. So when Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, the biggest question mark for Nick Chubb was how much is Kareem Hunt going to cut into his volume? Mm-hmm. And Chubb didn't really have any receiving volume, but the carries that he had and the efficiency that he had with his carries is what made him such a prominent fantasy running back. Now, Deshaun Watson's in the building. And when you have that much of an upgrade at quarterback from Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson, the question doesn't necessarily become Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb. It really becomes, how often are they going to run the ball now? Because you don't need to rely so much on Nick Chubb to take some pressure off of Mayfield's plate. And what I found interesting is that over the past 3 years, Nick Chubb has been a 1,000-yard rusher. So he is one of the best pure rushers in the NFL as it stands. And he's kind of teetered along that 190 to 210 some carry mark. That's probably not going to be the case this year with Deshaun Watson. But even if he gets, 160 carries, 170 carries, he's going to be efficient with it. He's still worth an investment in your dynasty or in just regular fantasy drafts because he is a big play waiting to happen. He's going to be efficient with however many carries he gets because he has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So, yes, it does not. I feel like Nick Chubb's one of those guys that, if you take in your draft, you're kind of okay, cool, but it doesn't sit right immediately. Mm-hmm. But once the season gets into the thick of things, you will appreciate having Nick Chubb on your team.
Most definitely. I mean, like you said, he's a top 3 NFL running back. He is so unbelievably skilled. I'm pretty sure he's never averaged under 5 yards a carry on a season, which is ridiculous. The problem is, like you're saying, they're not going to run as much. Kareem Hunt is still there cutting into receiving work, and Deshaun Watson runs the ball.
Yeah.
As well. And so Nick Chubb, in order to be super fantasy relevant, needs 14 rushing touchdowns, And he could definitely get it. I just don't know how confident I am that he can do it year after year. Now, Kareem Hunt is off the books after this season, but I don't know if they're going to go away from not having a guy like him at the very least. So that's kind of why I'm lower on Nick Chubb. He's also never finished above running back 8 in a season, despite being so good. And that's kind of what fantasy football is about, too, though. It's talent and situation. You know, if it's just talent, you're taking him the 102, 103. But any other situation drops down.
And I think now having Watson in the building, it does open up the defense a little bit for Nick Chubb, right? And it does, it will help him out in some ways. And I think the other thing with Nick Chubb, shoot, did I just forget my point? Oh, no. We don't know if Watson's going to be playing all of his games this year, half the games this year, or whatever, right? And there's the point. Oh my goodness. It came back to me. So in a hypothetical, let's say that the Browns have 60 plays a game, right? When Baker was the quarterback, you could argue that like it was 40 rushing plays to 20 passing plays. It's now more than likely going to be like 30 and 30. Like, I would not be surprised if the amount of pass attempts is like within 3 rushing attempts or vice versa. Like, this will be the most balanced offense in the NFL because it's Kevin Stefanski, who comes from Kubiak's and all that, whatever. Nick Chubb is most definitely worth having on your team. Don't downgrade him just because it's Deshaun Watson and Kareem Hunt and all this. He will still be a fine and efficient running back.
No doubt. And he's a guy that can break a 75-yard rushing touchdown any week. You know,
any week.
Give you 14 points on one play. Next on our list is pretty much the consensus 101 of rookie drafts, Breece Hall. He comes in at number 11. I have him at 10, Ty at 12, Lucas at 11. I took Breece Hall in our recent rookie draft. And I feel good about his situation in New York. So he is splitting the backfield with Michael Carter, which I feel is similar to Nick Chubb, is going to cap his ceiling. And that's why I think I have him above Nick Chubb, because I think he could be a similar situation to Nick Chubb. I am not calling him Nick Chubb talent. Do not put those words in my mouth. But situationally, he will be similar to Nick Chubb in that way. I also think that this is a team that's going to want to run the ball first. You don't bring in 2 tight ends and draft a third and strengthen the offensive line if you don't want to run the ball, run off play action all the time. They've got a lot of weapons. They should be scoring more points this season, which I think for Breece Hall means more touchdowns. So that's why I have him higher. I think he's in a good budding situation. This is an offensive core that's going to be together for 3 or 4 more years. And I do think the Jets are trending in the right direction, which could just mean it's all a trap. They all suck, and we're going to be right back where we were. But that's why I have Breece Hall higher. You know, he's so young. He's going to barely be 22 at the start of the season. I think actually he might be 21 at the start of the season. You know, he's going to be on an up-and-coming team. He's going to have a lot of goal line work. It's just the receptions might be slightly capped for Breece Hall.
Which, I mean, is not the worst thing in the world.
No, not
because, like
at
you
all.
said, Nick Chubb has done fairly well without any receiving work.
Exactly. Well, next on our list, we have another polarizing running back here because of injuries. Mr. Saquon Barkley coming in at number 10. I have Saquon down at 12, Ty at 10, and Lucas also has him at 12. Now, Mr. Barkley obviously has had a lot of injuries. So, Ty, why don't you explain why we are still relatively high on Saquon?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is, like, he was a running back 1 in fantasy his rookie year. And things are a little bit different now. The coaching staff has turned over a couple times. Front office is completely different now. And this offense is slowly getting better compared to what it's been. But I think Saquon is top 5 running back in the NFL when it comes to just pure skill. The dude is unbelievably strong, unbelievably quick, unbelievably agile for his size. He is everything. I mean, there was a reason why he was taken number 2 in his draft, because he did everything. He does everything. And I know last year, you know, when it came to Dynasty, he was top 6, top 5 because of the age and whatnot, and just looking at the state of that offense and being like, they've got no one else. That's still the same case for this offense. They've got, I mean, like, yes, Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, like, all the receivers are there, but, like, when you compare them to Saquon Barkley, it would be very, very dumb of Brian Daboll to not have that offense go through Saquon.
Definitely.
And when and for Dynasty, yeah, maybe 10 is a little high for most people, but 10 is probably going to be the right spot, because you know how high he can finish, but you also know how low he can finish.
100%. Yeah, Saquon, you know, we talk about injury concerns, but they're not reoccurring injuries. He had the ACL, yes, that's a little nerve-wracking, but the other injury he had last year was that ankle where he just happened to step on the wrong spot, hit a guy, rolled up his ankle, and it swelled up like crazy.
Yep.
You know, it's just fluky injuries that it's not like it's reoccurring things over and over again. It's not like it's a hamstring that never goes away or something like that.
Right. It's not Dalvin Cook's shoulder that keeps coming back every year.
Yep. That's definitely for sure. Number 9 on our list is Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara comes in at number 9 for you and Lucas, and number 6 for me. I'm a little bit higher on AK-41. But Alvin Kamara's in an offense where they're going to have to go through him. You know, he's a guy that can get 100 targets a season. And I think the way that he runs, the way that he trains, you know, it's all about core strength. It's all about balance. I think he's a guy that can progress, you know, 28, 29, still putting up decent numbers. Not the same high explosive numbers, because he's not breakaway speed, you know, all the time. Like, he can kind of get to that top gear, but that's not what he relies on for touchdowns, you know. Like, when we watched like an Adrian Peterson, he relied on being the strongest, the fastest, break, and then having that breakaway speed to get away from people. Kamara just relies on that vision. He relies on shiftiness, bouncing off guys, which I think is something that can translate for an older running back. I think that's why I have him higher, because I know that he can keep it up, and I know that he's going to consistently get volume on this offense. He's too skilled not to. Even when they bring in another guy, he doesn't need 225 carries to be super productive for fantasy. He only needs 160, 170 carries, because he can do so much other work, and he scores a lot of touchdowns. He just knows how to find the end zone. So that's why I think I'm higher on Alvin Kamara. Obviously, this year he's going to miss some time. But if we're looking from a dynasty outlook, you know, that's not that much time. We're talking about the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I don't think I need to add anything else. I mean, the only question is, how many games does he miss this year, just because of the offseason stuff?
Yeah.
That's the only question.
For sure. Next we have Austin Eckler. I am definitely the lowest on Eckler at 11. Ty, you got him at 8, and Lucas has him up at 6. So why don't you explain Austin Eckler to us in your ranking?
Yeah, so last year, let's start with last year. Arguably, like, the career year for him, right? He finishes running back 2 in fantasy, the number 9 player overall in fantasy. He had 911 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. He had 70 receptions on 94 targets for almost 650 yards and 8 touchdowns. So altogether, the dude combined for almost 1,600 yards and 20 touchdowns. The question mark that he had going into last year, was he going to be able to work a running back 1 workload? And was he going to get goal line carries? Yes and yes. He answered those to a level that we had not expected from Eckler, if we're going to be completely honest. This year, there was little to no turnover in that offense. The only person that they brought in that's really kind of a threat to Eckler is Isaiah Spiller. And you could argue that Spiller takes some receiving work away this year. I don't really buy that just because of how fast that offense works, and Eckler is the perfect running back for it. Spiller seems like the complete opposite. So can we expect the same as he did, the same production as last year? No, because you can never do that in fantasy. That's not how it works.
Yep.
But the touchdowns should be there still. The rushing yards probably could still be there. Receiving work could still be there too. I mean, he's going to finish as a top 5 running back in fantasy if he stays healthy. Because I know that he's also had other injury-riddled years and stuff. But again, he's going to finish top 5. The only reason why he's probably down at 8 is because he's 27. So the daunting question of how much longer does he have is kind of creeping up on him. Other than that, like he will finish top 5, like I said. And he is a set it and forget it guy because he's just that good in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. Age is the only reason I'm lower. He's just a guy that really relies on that quick burst, getting through the hole, and I just don't know how much longer that's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason I have him lower. But like you said, the upside is still there. I mean, he's going to have crazy upside this year. So I'm not going to say it any better. I selfishly stole these next two because I wanted to talk about them. So I'm going to talk about the next two.
I'll mute myself so you can just talk.
At number 7, I have Dalvin Cook. Lucas has him down all the way at 8. Oh, disgusting. And me and Ty have him at 7. Dalvin Cook is a guy who has definitely had injury concerns his whole career. When we talk about reoccurring injuries, we usually bring up Dalvin Cook's shoulder. So that is a little bit worrisome. He finished as the running back 16 last year on only 6 rushing touchdowns. This is a guy who has continually put up double-digit rushing touchdowns, and we should see that come back again this season. So the thing that's a little scary is he's 26, reoccurring injury. However, when the dude's healthy, he looks special on the field. That Pittsburgh game last year wasn't supposed to play. Everyone was like, it's going to be a down game. And he put up 200-plus yards, and every time he hit the hole, he is just dynamic. So he's another guy where I think, like a Kamara, I mean, he's a different runner than Kamara, but he's around that same age. I'm expecting another 2 years from him, probably 3 years of fantasy dominance before he kind of starts to tail off to that end. But I do want to recognize that he is a riskier pick in Dynasty because he could quickly just be done. It could be a Todd Gurley type fall off where that shoulder, it just gets so bad that it's not worth him playing anymore, and he just can't do it. So I do want to acknowledge that, but I just think the skill, the offense that he's in, we talk about Cam Akers scoring a lot of touchdowns. This Vikings team's going to score a lot of touchdowns this season. And Dalvin Cook's a better running back than Cam Akers, so I think that's why he's propelled so high. But he's also going to get some good receiving work. He's always been consistent in that way. Do you have anything to add on Dalvin Cook before I jump right into the next one?
No, and I think, with Kevin O'Connell coming in that Rams offense kind of being implemented into Minnesota, there is some concern with just how many more carries he gets than the next guy, Alexander Madison. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the guy, he's again another top 5 runner in the league. He just is. So you have to consider him in your top 10
for sure. Our next guy is Joe Mixon, and Joe Mixon's been my guy for the past 2 seasons, past 3 seasons actually, and I really believed in Joe Mixon, and it felt so good that it paid off finally this year. We decided to start a podcast. My hottest take is Joe Mixon will be a top 7 running back. I wanted to say top 5, could not convince myself, and he finishes as the running back 4. So, I'm feeling pretty good about that. He's in a fun offense to watch. They're rebuilding that offensive line. They just went to the Super Bowl. They're going to put up points. They did like crazy last year at times. And I still think that they're going to try to be run first and run through Joe Mixon first, which is great news. Joe Mixon kind of surprised us last year with the amount of receptions and targets that he had. It wasn't crazy amount. It wasn't Austin Eckler level. But I think he had 65 targets last season, which is very solid. I mean, that really helps you when you're a running back move up into that top 5 conversation. He's on the outside looking in of top 5, but just to be in that conversation is a big deal. He's only 25. He's on a 4-year, $1 million contract. The team likes him. Team's headed in a good direction. So that's why I have Joe Mixon this high.
Not much else to add. Mixon was your guy.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. Like, I have a man crush on Joe Mixon, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
The football player.
As a fantasy. Thank you. I'm sure he's a great guy. Next, we got at number 5, Mr. Javonte Williams. Ty and Lucas both have him at 5. I have him all the way down at 8, so that is why I gave it to Ty, so that he could talk about the upside that is Javonte Williams.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to combine this with the guy that's right ahead of Javonte Williams in DeAndre Swift, because Javonte Williams is literally DeAndre Swift 2.0, but just the roles are switched in their offenses. So I'll start with Swift. Swift and Jamal Williams, they split carries last year. Like Swift at 151, Williams at 153 in the same amount of games. They split carries. And right away, I know for us fellas, we're just kind of like, oh, okay. But at the end of the day, Swift had more touchdowns than Williams. So Swift is obviously the preferred guy. But what separates Swift from Williams is the receiving work. Swift had 62 catches, 78 targets, 452 yards. He averaged almost 5 receptions on 6 targets a game. Those kind of numbers for a running back are like Austin Eckler type numbers, where that is going to be, for PPR, right? I think that's a very big distinction as well. PPR, Swift is like the guy to have in your top 5 because he's young. He's going to have receiving work. That's just how it's going to be. Standard, a little different, but that's not what we're talking about. So with Swift going into this year, there's a question mark on how much the receiving work will will go into this next year.
Yep.
Yeah, because they did add Jameson Williams. They went out and signed DJ Chark. They already have TJ Hawkinson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of broke out last year. So exactly how much of the receiving work is going to be there for Swift? And I think if anything from last year, we saw that they wanted to use Swift in space because that's where he's best.
Mm-hmm.
He's good between the tackles, but he is best when he's in space. So, like I said, he's top 5 because of age. The usage is going to be there. And Javonte Williams is literally DeAndre Swift 2.0. Split carries with Melvin Gordon, roughly the same amount of yards. Gordon got the touchdown advantage, so there's the flip. But Javonte made up for it with receiving work. And when Gordon missed a week last year and Javonte filled in, Javonte finished as the running back 1 that week. Mm-hmm. So he is more than capable of taking over this offense. But I can understand, I don't agree with, but I can understand a GM saying, like, okay, if we can have both the running backs that we did last year with our new quarterback, why would we not, right? Mm-hmm. So I get it. Javonte finished as running back 17 last year as the backup. That's only going to get better as he gets more and more experience in the league. And if I'm not mistaken, Melvin Gordon is on a 1-year deal.
Yes.
So ideally, Melvin Gordon is out of Denver after this year, which leaves Javonte Williams as the primary running back in that offense. So maybe he's not so much a win now piece for Dynasty. even though he will contribute.
Yes.
But he is definitely the long-term young running back that everyone seems to be going for in dynasty formats.
100%. Going off of Javonte Williams, I think the reason I don't have him quite as high is I don't know if I believe that he's going to ever have just his own backfield as long as Nathaniel Hackett is there. I think Hackett's going to try to run a 2 running back system. I still think, I have him at 9, so it's not like I think that he's going to be bad or anything. I just think that he's always going to have more of a cap ceiling. And the reason that I'm not as worried about with Swift is an elite receiver. Javonte is good at receiving. Swift is an elite receiving running back. That's where I think the difference is, because Swift can make up for splitting those carries. But that's just why I have Javonte a little bit lower. I agree with everything else that you said, Ty.
Yeah, and that Nathaniel Hackett component, I guess, to Javonte Williams, I think this may just be me, but I think that people need to start looking at Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon more like Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, or Jamal Williams, where don't be surprised if Javonte actually kind of takes over as the lead back in that offense this year, just because he fits the scheme better than Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Up next, at number 3, we have Christian McCaffrey. Lucas has him at 3, Ty at 4, and I have him at 2. And so many people have been burned by Christian McCaffrey, taking him at the 101 2 seasons in a row, having that being a lost season. But there is not a player in fantasy football that has the ceiling of Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is the only player that can legitimately score 30 points a game. And it's because he is the best receiving back in the NFL. Can run the ball outside. He can run between the tackles. It just comes down to staying healthy. Now, we're talking about the reoccurring injury again. Christian McCaffrey has not had a reoccurring injury. He has had multiple different injuries, which you can say is worrisome within itself, but it's not like you're worried that he's going to go back out and hurt his hamstring again, hurt his shoulder again, tear his ACL again. And I think the injuries have been extended because the last 2 seasons, the Panthers have not been in the playoff hunt at all. So the last 3 or 4 seasons of the year where they could put McCaffrey back out there, they're just not going to risk it because they don't need him, because they're already fighting for a top pick, So the ceiling, plus the fact that I'm not as concerned about injuries, even though everyone's going to say I should be, I put McCaffrey at 2 because I think that he is, behind Jonathan Taylor, one of the best bets in fantasy football this season.
If anyone says to whoever takes Christian McCaffrey in your fantasy drafts, if they say that you got your pick wrong, they don't understand fantasy football. Because exactly what you said, the dude is the only running back, besides maybe Jonathan Taylor at this point, that can legitimately average 30 points a game. Us fellas have no problem taking him top 5. Other people may. But if he's there at 7, 8, 9, 10, and they say that you got your pick wrong, I'm sorry. They don't understand the potential ceiling that Christian McCaffrey has. Simple as that.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. When I look at it again, if I'm in a redraft and I am at pick 2, Christian McCaffrey will not make it past me. If I'm at pick 1, Christian McCaffrey may not make it past me, because I am going to be so tempted. Because he can be, if he stays healthy the whole year, he will be the running back 1. I don't even think it's a may. I think it's, if he is healthy all year, he is the running back 1. Because that's just that's how skilled he has, even if they take away some of his carries. Because when he played a full season, he was so much better than everyone else that it wasn't even close. But we'll move on.
Oh, no, keep stalling, because I was going to look up, because he played the first 3-4 weeks of the season last year?
Yep, he did.
And then
I also might be a little biased because of Christian McCaffrey is on my dynasty team, and I paid up a decent amount, giving up David Montgomery and Leonard Fournette and a fourth for Christian McCaffrey. But I am such a believer that he is going to have such a great season.
Oh, give me a second. So, hey, week 1, McCaffrey put up 23 points, had 98 yards rushing, had 9 receptions, 89 yards receiving. Okay?
23 points. He was the running back 1 that week. Didn't score a touchdown.
Didn't score a touchdown. Week 2. Okay? Week 2. 72 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown, 5 receptions, 65 receiving yards. So that's 22 fantasy points.
What a scrub.
So that's 45 points through 2 weeks. He was running back 2. Okay? And that was with only 1 touchdown. You add in the touchdowns, and even maybe even this is a better point. When he came back and he played for 4 games, and I'm going to leave out the 4th game because that's the one that he got injured in. Mm-hmm. The 3 games that he played, he had 11 points, 21 points, and 21 points. And do some quick maths here. That should put him as like the running back, like a top 5 running back in those weeks, because it was week 9 to week 11. And if I'm not mistaken, he was running back 4. Coming off of his injury.
Yeah.
That's all that needs to be said.
Exactly. So we'll move on to number 2, who I think, besides Jonathan Taylor, is the safest dynasty running back in Najee Harris, because he's going to get crazy volume. Mike Tomlin uses 1 running back, and he uses them a lot. Mm-hmm. And so Najee Harris is going to get crazy volumes to tie. Tell the people why they should be all over Najee Harris in Dynasty.
So the man finished with 1,200 rushing yards last year and 7 touchdowns, which averaged out over the entire season was 18 carries and 70 yards a game, which is really good for a rookie running back. But here's where the value really kicks in for Najee Harris. The man had 74 catches on 94 targets, 467 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The receiving work was there. It is still there. I do not care if it's Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett that's the quarterback. This offense is going through Najee Harris. There's a reason why they were comfortable taking Kenny Pickett in this draft. There's a reason why they were comfortable in taking Mitch Trubisky in free agency. It's because they know that Najee Harris is the focal point in that offense.
For sure.
The man is 24, 1 year under his belt, where he was arguably, dare I say, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Sorry. It still blows my mind. Anyway, look, Pittsburgh got some offensive line improvements. The new quarterback is not going to affect him at all. He's a top 2, and he should be 1, but there's just someone that's, really, 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 incredible, really good in front of him. So,
yeah, I would agree 100% with that. I think even if the receiving work comes down, the touchdowns have to go up.
Exactly.
Only 10 touchdowns on over 400 touches. Like, the man's due for some touchdown regression. I don't know how much, if it's going to come this year, just because I don't know how great the offense is going to be. But moving forward, he's going to score more touchdowns in 10 a season. So I think that's something you look forward to as well.
Yep.
And as Ty alluded to, our consensus number 1, unanimous number 1, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is 23. He's going to average over 5 yards a carry. The Colts O-line isn't as great as it was 2 seasons ago, but it is still really, really good. Even with Nyheim Hines, even if Hines gets 80 targets, Jonathan Taylor's still going to get enough targets to keep him as a running back 1 or as a top 3 running back for the rest of his career. If he's near the end zone, he scores. if there's any hole, he finds it and he breaks it for a big touchdown. I mean, he's everything you want. Maybe you could desire more for the receiving work, but he's going to be so incredibly consistent. He's going to be one of those guys that you look at every single week and he's never below 14 points. You know, and he can score 35 points in a week. So there's just really no reason to have Jonathan Taylor any lower than 1 for Dynasty rankings.
I mean, you said it. There should be no reason that he scores lower than 14 points a game this week or this year. And if he does, he's still going to get 25 plus touches.
Yeah.
It's not because he didn't get fed the ball at all. Volume's going to be there. He will produce.
He definitely will produce. He will continue to score 12 plus touchdowns every single season that he's in the NFL. He's just so consistent. He's so good. And he's in a perfect situation for being a great fantasy running back.
Kudos to all of whoever out there in the world bought into Jonathan Taylor last year. We just took the middle ground because we saw so many people saying that they were in and we saw so many people saying that they were out. So we just took a middle ground. So we're not taking an L. We're not taking a dub. But we know that there are some people that took a dub on that take. So kudos to you. We have now hopped onto your bandwagon.
100%. I just want to take a second to recognize there are a lot of guys that just don't pan out. You know, we have Breece Hall at 10, but he's never taken a snap. We look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire 2 years ago, whenever he got drafted 3 years ago now. He was a top 5 Dynasty running back. You thought, got good skill, taken first round, Kansas City Chiefs. No way he's outside the top 10. You know, he was taken first round in redraft. And he has been nothing short of a disappointment. Hopefully a little bit of a bounce back year this year, but you know, he's not cracking our top 20, that's for sure. But that's just something to remember. With Dynasty, you're trying to project multiple years out, and you just don't know how that's all going to work out. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you are human. You will make mistakes, and your value is not in your fantasy leagues. Maybe it is for us, but that's because we've accepted our fate. Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
Motivational speaker Ty here. Giving it to us straight. I love it. Alrighty. Ty, before we start wrapping this up, do you have any last thoughts on Dynasty running backs that you need to share with the people before we wrap this up?
So we are in the middle of a Dynasty startup draft, and it is I find it quite funny with the amount of rookie running backs that are going in this Dynasty startup where there are other viable options still available. I would just like to say, do not inflate the value of age and the rookie title in Dynasty. Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall are the exception in this case because they have the best situation. But I mean, look, Keontae Ingram, guys like Tyrion Davis-Price, guys like Hassan Haskins, Pierre Strong, those guys, Kyron Williams even, those guys should not be going ahead of running backs like Jamal Williams, guys like, I don't know, Darrell Williams, J.D. McKissick, Darrell Henderson, Gus Edwards. Yeah. Do not inflate the value of the rookie title because you don't know the role.
Yeah, I think that's super solid advice, and I can't say it better myself. So, with that, make sure you are following us on Twitter. Make sure you follow us on TikTok, Instagram. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts at. As Ty is counting on his fingers, we're at least at 7 places that you need to be following.
7 outlets.
And one last one. Join us on our Discord.
Hey.
Doing some mocks, answering some questions. It's been a lot of fun over there. So, as always, deuces. And we'll catch you next